Hello, everyone. In this session, we're going to cover how to fill out the Shift Management Excel template. This template is a key tool for setting up your organization's shifts and break rules. We'll be looking at the instruction sheet, the shift sheet, and the configure break sheet. I'll explain each field and provide examples, so by the end of this session, you'll be able to confidently enter your data. Let's start with the instruction sheet. This sheet isn't for data entry, it's a reference guide. It tells you what each tab does, defines key terms, lists any required prerequisite templates, and provides specific instructions for each template. You can refer to the Data Template Overview session for a more detailed explanation of the instruction sheet. Now, let's move to the shift sheet. This is the core of the template, where you'll define all the shift details, including the name, timing, type, and cutoff hours. I'll walk you through it column by column. First, enter your company name under the organization column. For example, I've put Sonic Venture, but you should enter your own company's name. You can also add multiple organizations here if needed. Next, give the shift a clear, descriptive name. For example, I've used morning, evening, and night. You can also name a shift weekly off if it's not a working day. The goal is to use names that are easy to understand. Then choose the shift type from the drop-down menu. This helps categorize shifts and their behavior. You'll see options like morning, evening, night, and afternoon. The start date is when the shift becomes active. Be sure to use the format of day, month, and year. Then enter the in and out times using a 24-hour format. For example, I've entered 6 o'clock and 2 p.m. Finally, for shift hours, enter the total length of the shift in hours. This should be calculated based on the in and out times. Next, we'll look at the cutoff hours column. This sets the minimum number of hours an employee needs to work to be marked as present for a full day. For example, if you set this to 8, an employee must work at least 8 hours to get credit for a full day, regardless of their start time. If they work less than 8 hours, the system may record it as a half day or a short day, depending on your company's policy. Half-day cutoff. The cutoff hours. Half-day column defines the minimum hours required for an employee to get credit for a half day. For example, if you set this to 4, any employee who works at least 4 hours, but less than 8 hours, will be counted as a half day. If they work less than 4 hours, it might be considered an absence or a leave day, depending on your configured rules. Set flexible to Y if the shift allows for flexible timing. Otherwise, mark it N. Mark weekly off as Y only if you are using this shift to configure weekly off days. Only mark night shift as Y if the shift is an actual overnight shift. If employees can claim overtime for this shift, set overtime. Allowed to yes. If that overtime needs manager approval, set overtime approval required to yes. Remember to use the drop-down menus whenever they're available and double-check your format, especially for times and dates. Now, let's look at the configure break sheet. This is an optional but useful sheet for defining lunch, tea, or other breaks. Start with your organization name, making sure it's exactly the same as the one you used in the shift sheet. Next, select the name of the shift you want to add the break to. This must be an exact match to the name you entered in the shift sheet. Enter a descriptive break name, like lunch break or tea break. Then choose the pay type. Is this a paid or unpaid break? Enter the start time and end time of the break in a 24-hour format. Finally, the allowed duration is the total length of the break in hours. For example, I've entered 0.5, which represents a 30-minute break. The start date shows when the break becomes active. Use the same format: day, month, and year. This field is optional. You can leave it blank if the break is ongoing. Remember, breaks must always fall within the shift hours. You can also define multiple breaks if you need to. Before we finish, here are a few key reminders. Always review the instruction sheet first. Only enter data in the shift and configure break sheets. Use the correct date format, day, month, year. Use the 24-hour format for all time fields. Be consistent. All spelling and names must match across all the sheets. And that's it. You now know how to fill out the Shift Master template. If you follow the structure, use the drop-down menus, and keep the formatting consistent, your data should import without any issues. Thank you for attending.